to the Alumni House podcast. My name is Matt
I'm the Quacker.
Quacker. It is an exciting evening. We've got Thursday night football on, both college and pro. Got some games in the books, and a little bit of a light week everywhere in the country until you get to the SEC, and then I'm looking at 4 ranked on ranked matchups and 1 ranked on really good not ranked team. So, but until then, it'll be a little bit of a slog. Not that bad though. But before we jump into that, why don't you go ahead and hit us with the news and notes?
All right, so this is a major breaking thing. It came out, I guess it was yesterday. So everybody remembers a couple weeks ago, the Georgia-Auburn game was pretty controversial. There was a lot of controversial calls or no calls in it. Well, the SEC has suspended official Kevin Williams for the remainder of the season because of the Auburn-Georgia game. There was 11 complaints filed from the game. 9 were deemed to be incorrect calls on the field. So he is done for the season, and that's unprecedented in at least college football. I don't think I've ever heard of an official being suspended before. So that's, they released a statement after the Auburn-Oklahoma game, and now they've actually taken action. So good on the SEC. They're actually, showing they're trying to do better with officiating. The Dallas Wings of the WNBA are close to hiring Jose Fernandez from USF to be their next head coach. So, South Florida has had a tough time the last couple of years with basketball coaches right before the season started. I think this is the women's coach here, but it's still right before the season for them. And he's already informed the team that he intends to leave for the WNBA. Oklahoma is installing padding around the walls of Owen Field after wide receiver Keontez Lewis ran headfirst into a brick wall 3 weeks ago. He was carted off the field after it happened. I don't know if you ever saw that, Matt. There's the overthrow on the pass, and he was trying to make a play on it, and he never caught the ball, and his helmet hit the brick wall, laid him out. I don't know if he's back from that or not, but they're finally putting padding around on that. So, long overdue. Florida is turning to Steve Spurrier Jr. to help DJ Lagway. He'll be on the sidelines working directly with Lagway during the games. He was hired earlier this season to be an offensive analyst. And since the firing of Billy Napier, he is being moved up into some on-field positions and stuff. Matt, do you know if I know Steve Spurrier played quarterback for Florida in one of Heisman? Did Junior ever do anything that you know of? Was he?
I think he played for South Carolina.
Okay, he's a quarterback. I'm assuming.
Yeah, but I don't think he ever played. Now I could be wrong about that, about him being on the team. He may have just been a GA. I don't really remember. But he was involved in one of Spurrier's South Carolina programs in some capacity, whether it was staff or backup.
Right. Yeah, I think I remember him being like a coach at one point, but I don't remember much. That's, you don't think about it, but it's been a pretty good while back since Spurrier retired from college football. So like we keep saying, time keeps on slipping, and time compresses. So, but anyway, he is now on the sidelines working with Lagway. So, he's kind of struggling a little bit this year. So they're hoping this will help out. So we'll stick with Florida here. Florida baseball coach Kevin O'Sullivan has taken an indefinite leave of absence effective immediately as of yesterday, Wednesday, October 22nd, for personal and family issues. I was just looking on Twitter, and it looks like he won't really miss any time away, like when the season actually starts. But this is just something for the time being. There's no health issues or anything like that. So um, hopefully, whatever it is, he gets it worked out and he can rejoin the team because, um, you know, the past couple of years, the season itself has been kind of up and down. But once he gets his teams in the postseason, they tend to make pretty deep runs. They makes, especially if they get to Omaha, they tend to make a lot of noise. So for stability of the Florida program, it'd be good to get him back as soon as possible. Sticking in baseball, Tennessee's Tony Vitello has officially accepted the San Francisco Giants job, becoming the first person to go from managing a collegiate program to becoming the manager of an MLB team without any prior professional experience. That's almost impossible to believe that there hasn't been any other coaches go from a D1, like a highly successful D1 program, to being an MLB coach. But then you think about how protective the old guard has always been. Maybe it's not quite so impossible to believe, but you would have thought at some point Skip Bertman would have been offered a job, to coach in the majors from like the Miami, or at the time they were the Florida Marlins or something like that, but it's never happened before. So congratulations to Tony V. There is some slight panic happening in Knoxville now around a baseball program that as of 5 years ago, the fans in Knoxville didn't know they had. So, and the last thing here, and this is kind of going to tie into some other stuff that's going on, that's not college related, but it kind of is. The NCAA will allow student athletes and coaches to bet on professional games starting November 1st. After the news that has broken today about coaches and players in the NBA being arrested for sports betting and some other things that are going on, you have to wonder if this is the wisest move that the NCAA can make, because it starts betting on professional, and soon it's going to wind up with something happening where it's something similar, maybe where they're betting on college sports, and they're maybe even betting on their own teams. Point shaving scandals have happened in college before. You would hate to see it happening again, but this is the modern world we live in. And
I don't think anyone will ever be allowed to vote on or bet on their own sport or team, but I do see some potential problems. First thing that came to mind was like Travis and Trevor Etienne. Now that doesn't matter because they're both in the NFL now. Well, I don't know if Trevor made a roster, but there was a 3-year period where Trevor was in college and Travis was in the pros. They could very easily share information. I'm not saying those guys. I'm just saying, they're brothers, so they talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I could see an issue. I don't know that they'll ever let NFL players vote on it or bet on NFL games, or college vote on college. I think that would be a bridge too far, in my opinion.
Well, that's not what I was saying. I was saying you're going to have it under the table happening. You're going to have
that's already happening. I don't know that allowing them to vote on or bet. I keep saying bet on pro sports is going to move the needle on the under the table stuff. I think that's happening anyway. So.
I did see a still shot. Get Up this morning was talking about this case as it was coming up with it was two current. It was one current player, coach, and then a former player who were all arrested by the FBI. And they were covering the story on Get Up, and they subtly removed the ESPN Bet logo and stuff from the bottom line as they were talking about it. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, I obviously, I mean, that's probably a good optics move.
yeah,
But all right, well, yeah, I mean, obviously, we're gonna cover betting stuff as as things like that, regulations and stuff change. But in general, I mean, we're not gonna focus too much on it because it's not the game. It's fine. I don't have a feeling one way or another about it, but we're not gonna necessarily
yeah,
um, you know, linger on stuff like that too much. All right, so let's jump into. We've got not as many, like I said, not as many games this week, but we're gonna move through them as quickly as we can. So Quacker, let's start just north of your state in Memphis, Tennessee. Number 18 USF is headed to Memphis. A team that looked really good early on in the season, and it's not that they look terrible now, but they don't look invincible after that loss by a touchdown on the road to UAB. But UAB fired their coach and is 3-4. So
yeah,
opinions on this one, it's interesting. It could be that this is a get right game for Memphis. It's at home. But I got to tell you, I've watched South Florida quite a bit this year. I watched both the Florida and the Miami games and the Boise State. I watched all three of those. And I watched a handful of other moments. I don't know if Memphis is good enough to beat South Florida. But I definitely think Memphis, if they're not a paper tiger, is gonna come in, with everything they've got for this one.
yeah, yeah. I was looking back at their schedule and because I was trying to remember who they lost to. And then you said Miami, and I was like, well, that's obviously who they lost to. Um, you know, they're obviously this year the one of the best teams in the American, maybe one of the best teams in the country. The way they're playing this year, very explosive offense. It was obvious that Brown, the quarterback Brown, his first name is
Byron.
it Byron Brown. Um, it's obvious that him missing last season was a huge contributing factor to them not playing as well last year. They started out okay, and they kind of fell off. He has made all the difference in the world from them this year, and Memphis is one of those programs that over the last decade or so, it seems like they're turning out a couple of pro players a year, and they're turning over the roster constantly. But they're constantly just good. It's not really mattering who the coach is or anything like that. It's something in the water there in North Mississippi. Because we pretty much claim Memphis. It's just they have a different last name. Um, but I think this is going to be a heck of a game here. This may be one I try to keep an eye on, especially as I make my way over to Hattiesburg for our game. This is going to be a bit of a shootout, I believe. But I have a feeling that, as you're saying, South Florida's just be too much for Memphis to handle. I think Byron Brown is probably Player of the Year for the American this year. He's certainly playing that way right now. Um, he's he's the X factor. If he stays healthy for this game, I don't see a way Memphis can really, unless he just plays like the worst game of his career. I want to see a way for Memphis to overcome this South Florida offense.
Yeah, I would push back on just one thing you said. I certainly do not think they are one of the best teams in the country, but I do think that there's a very good case to be made for them being one of the best teams in the group of 6. For sure. I mean, I think there's probably 10 Power 4 teams that I think would beat them pretty easily. But that's just my opinion there on that. So, all right, let's move on to the Sun Belt. Oh, by the way, I agree. I'm also picking USF in this one. Let's move on to the Sun Belt. And we will start in Hattiesburg, where Quacker just mentioned he will be, as he often is. Well, not often, always, right? When they're in Hattiesburg, unless you have something, just out of the ordinary going on.
Yeah.
All right. So talk to us about that one. So Louisiana Monroe's coming into town. What do we think about this game?
So, you look at the spread, it's 13.5. I was kind of thinking, this is going to be a nothing burger game. And then I listened to Coach Huff's midweek press conference where he's talking about this game. And it could just be the Nick Saban in him. And because, he was associate head coach for Nick Saban for a couple of years there at Alabama. He spent, a lot of time under him. And if you listen to his coaching philosophy, it really lines up with Saban's philosophy quite a bit. So he may just be pulling the Saban thing, but he's talking about, if you just turn the scoreboard off and don't worry about down and distance and stuff, this team is a good team. And he's talking about how big their line is, how big their defensive line is, and the playmakers and all. And I was like, well, maybe this is a game we have to worry about more. And I was thinking, this is homecoming. It's going to be hopefully a packed out crowd. Homecoming games are always kind of they're a good time for the fans, unless the team starts losing. But the players, they know it's homecoming. They're wanting to play their best. I expect Southern Miss to come out and play a good game in this one, and I think they're going to win this one. And I think they're going to win this one fairly easily. But Coach Huff did kind of put that seed in my mind that this could be a tougher game than what I was thinking it would be initially. I don't know that Monroe's ever. I'm sure they've beaten us at some point, but I don't think Monroe's beaten us in the past 20 years for sure. Their program has been more down than up over the last 20, 30 years. So
look at you picking on poor Louisiana Monroe.
The one thing I always say about Monroe is they have some of the best uniforms in college football. I don't know. I haven't seen what they're wearing for this game. Usually in the wardrobe area they make and can beat Southern Miss, but not on the field. So I'm definitely picking my alma mater on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to take your alma mater too. I'm taking USM. I agree with most of what you said. I mean, I just don't. I don't see a very clear path for Louisiana Monroe in this one. Sorry, my mouse is going crazy. It was like working and not working and then working. All right, so
one thing, and I forgot to mention this while I was talking. Southern Miss is ranked number 1 in the Sun Belt in interceptions. Like as far as like our defense is number 1 in interceptions in the Sun Belt, and number 2 nationally. So that's I didn't really. I didn't realize that until this week. Your teams always put out the fluffer pieces and stuff to tell you, oh, this is what we're doing here. This is this is this. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's really really cool. I mean, we were really high. Yeah. I think we're still really high in pass breakups. Coach Huff hates that stat. He's like, I don't like pass breakups. They need to be interceptions. If you get your hands on it, you need to catch it. I have a little different view on that. I'd rather us break the pass up than them catch it. So, at least it's if it's a pass breakup, that means they didn't catch it either. So,
sure, yeah.
but I also understand where he's coming from too, because you're giving them another chance on that as well. But yeah, I definitely wanted to mention that Southern's doing really well as far as turning people over.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so let's move on to Old Dominion. They are playing host to App State. Both teams are 4-3. Both teams are 1-2 in the Sun Belt. Yet Old Dominion is a 14.5-point favorite, with a total over under of 59.5. Quacker, how low can you get a ticket for this game?
I do not know because I'm on my ESPN app.
Well, I can tell you, it's $43.
iPad. Really?
It's
Okay.
$43.
Well, that's probably average price for Old Dominion ticket. Um, that's that's one thing that they don't show on here is ticket prices. But
Well, you don't want to know what the Southern Miss ticket price is.
13,
9.
if I had to guess. 9. Okay.
Probably because they're playing Monroe. But all right. So about this game, Appalachian State at Old Dominion. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I don't remember if you picked him last week, but I picked Old Dominion last week in the game against James Madison, because Old Dominion has been playing pretty well this year offensively, and I figured in that game that they would put up a bunch of points and walk out. I mean, they beat Virginia Tech earlier in the season, which is, looking back, not the biggest thing. But they got throttled last week by James Madison 63-27. So that really has shaken my confidence in Old Dominion. I still think they'll beat App State. App State's in the first year under a new coach. They're still playing well, but it's a home game for Old Dominion. They're coming off this loss. They're mad. I'm going to take Old Dominion. I don't know if they win by the 14.5, but I think this is going to be kind of their game to lose.
Yeah.
I don't know that App State comes in and really, short of Old Dominion doing the things to lose it. I don't know that App State comes in and really stands a good chance of winning this game.
Yeah, other than their loss to Boise State, App State has been in every game, including the ones that they lost. Now they got destroyed by Boise State. It was like 45-14 or something like that. But I did pick James Madison last week. Now that was one of those games that I was pretty nervous about, and it just wound up that I wound up being lucky that it made me look smart because they beat him so bad. But that certainly wasn't because I had a crystal ball. I'm also going to take Old Dominion. I will take them. Now we don't track this, but I will take them to cover the spread. All right. So with that,
there's one game going on right now in the Sun Belt. It's South Alabama at Georgia State. It's 31-31 with 4:11 to go in the fourth quarter, and we are in a review right now. South Alabama just got a turnover, but it's being reviewed. So keep you up to date on that as things progress.
All right. Thanks for that update. Hold on. Okay. So with that, told you guys this was going to be a little bit of a slog in the first couple of conferences. Moving to the ACC, we've got SMU who's really looked a lot better, in recent weeks. I'm not going to say they look like they're in last season's form by any stretch because they don't. But they are going to Wake Forest, and SMU's a 2.5-point favorite. So what that really means is they're like a 5-point favorite because Wake Forest is getting 2.5 for being at home. So SMU's 5-2, 3-0 in the ACC. Wake Forest is 4-2, 1-2 in the ACC. But one of the key differences is that Wake Forest's wins are Oregon State, Virginia Tech, Western Carolina, and Kennesaw State. And SMU's wins, on the other hand, are not a lot better, but they are, fairly better. East Texas A&M and Missouri State, told you they were better. No, after that, Syracuse, Stanford, Clemson. So I take that back. I guess they're fairly even on that. I'm gonna take the home team in this one. I'm gonna take the Demon Deacons to win.
I'm kind of leaning that way myself, because I was curious as to how Wake Forest had got to the 4-3 record. I just was looking at their scores. Other than when they played Western Carolina, who's a FCS school, all the games have been close, except for Oregon State, which is just, I mean, they're in a tailspin. They're fired their coach and everything else. But they beat Kennesaw State, who's actually doing very well this season. They're 1 win away from being bowl eligible for the first time in program history, which is only, as far as the FBS goes, 2 years. So congrats to them. They had a 1-point win against Kennesaw State. Lost by 1 to Georgia Tech, who's undefeated, and playing very well right now. I'm very tempted to take Wake Forest in this one. I think I'm going to take SMU. I think they're just a little bit better. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Wake Forest won this one. But I'm going to take SMU just so we have a different pick here.
All right. So we've got SMU for Quacker and Wake Forest for me. All right. So moving to NC State going to Pittsburgh. What are your thoughts on this
one? All right, so Pitt has been playing some pretty tough ball this season. I mean, they've put up quite a few points in their wins. They had a close loss to West Virginia in the backyard brawl. That's always a tight game. That's one of those, like most of your rivalry games. You can take the records and throw them out the window.
Yep.
Because they just hate each other. They just want to beat each other up. Their 2 losses have been by a touchdown each. That's it. They've lost by 14 points for the whole season. I think Pitt's the better team over NC State. NC State's tough, but they're not impressive. I mean, they lost to Virginia Tech the week after Virginia Tech had fired their coach. They did beat Virginia. That's Virginia's lone loss on the season. So and again, that was a rivalry game that I didn't know existed. I knew they were conference foes. I didn't realize they were rivals until they played each other as a non-conference game just so they could get that rivalry game in. I don't know that NC State's got the firepower to stay with this Pitt offense. Pitt's offense moves the ball very well. I'm thinking Pitt wins this one, probably by a couple touchdowns. I mean, the game predictor has Pitt with the 67.3% chance to win. So I'm kind of going to lean with that. I think Pitt wins this one. Puts themselves bowl eligible at that point, and still kind of in the running for a chance to be in the conference championship game. Whether they get there or not, I don't know, but they at least will maintain a a chance to get in because they'll only be a game behind. Those in front of them. And right now they're only a game behind uh, everybody except for Georgia Tech.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with everything you said here. I'm also going to take Pitt. I I do agree with you that NC State seems to be a little bit of a mystery and a little bit Jekyll and Hyde. But it's like you said, Pitt's offense, the way they've been playing, as of late. Um, I think they got some fuel after the backyard brawl and the way that worked out in the end, not in their favor. So we're gonna have to, and I think we will. We're gonna have some separation here in the SEC because just a real quick update. I think, and I don't remember because I don't have it pulled up. So Quacker has got a 4-game lead on me if I'm looking at the right sheet here. Right now, and we only have 1 game different so far. So we're going to move to the SEC and hope that we get some differences here. And this first one, we're going to be different. I guarantee we're going to be different. Number 23, Texas is going to MSU. Listen, Texas is not as bad as people think they are. Arch is not as bad as people think they are. But I'm going to tell you what, Mississippi State is good, and they're playing at home with the Cowbells. Texas, there's a reason they're only a 6.5-point favorite. Texas is 5-2. Mississippi State is 4-3. 0-3 in the SEC. I don't think they won a conference game last year. That ends this weekend. Mississippi State wins the game in Starkville.
Yeah, their State is on a 15-game conference losing streak.
Yeah, I didn't think they had won one last year, and I know before that, with Arnett, they didn't do anything. So
yeah. So this State team is getting close. I don't think they're quite there yet. I mean, if this is Texas from last year with the offensive line, even if all you have is the offensive line, this is an easy Texas win. I think this is going to be a slog. This is going to be just like every other game that Texas has played this year, where it's going to come down to the final possession, for either team to win. Arch, he's still having flashes of looking really good, and he's got those moments where you're going, "What is he doing?" And then you look at what the line's doing, you're going, "Oh, okay, it's not him so much as it is a line that just cannot block for him." I'm gonna take Texas in this one, but it's gonna be a close one. I don't feel great about this pick, but I'm gonna take Texas.
okay, yeah, and I had a feeling you probably would, just because I know you're just like I am. You are not in the camp that believes that Arch or Texas are quite as bad as they may have appeared, at certain points in the year. And we are in full agreement there. I think the difference is I just really, really, really believe in this Mississippi State team. So good. We have another different one there. So we're probably going to be different on this one too. We might be moving to Death Valley. By the way, I want to point something out. So this game's at 7:30. I saw a picture a few weeks ago, and let me see if I can find it so that I can read this off. Of it was the percentage of night games either for SEC teams or a highly highly, respected programs. I'm only
While you're looking that up,
Go ahead.
Matt, South Alabama just scored a touchdown to go ahead, 37-31, extra point to come with 1:49 to go in the fourth quarter.
Okay, so tell me the score one more time.
It's 37-31 with the extra point still to come. So,
Okay. Well, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to find this quickly, but I remember LSU's kind of. I remember roughly what it was. I think like the next closest team percentage of home night games was like 12 or 15%. LSU's percentage of home night games, meaning home games that occur at night, was over 40%. Now, for those of us who are not, in athletic programs, there's a couple things that go into this. The university requests a slot for their home games with the television broadcast company. And then the broadcast company has some contractual obligations to the conference for how they select where they go, but they also can take into account the request from the school. Obviously, most schools are going to request night games at home. LSU, rightfully so, more than any other team, is going to adamantly, the word is escaping me, but wow, they're gonna vie for, that's not the word I was looking for, but that's what I'm gonna use, for night games at home because of what drunk Louisianans, Louisianan, I don't know how to say that, drunk Cajuns do for the team. So we have yet again another home night game. This to me, this is number 3 Texas A&M going to number 20 LSU, and I'll tell you, I think that to this point in the season, it's no secret that Texas A&M has played far and away better than everyone else in the SEC. Not even close. LSU had among the highest expectations coming into this season, and they haven't played terrible. They just haven't played up to, I think, what most people thought their potential was. So this smells like a game to me that LSU gets fired up, they come out, it could be close in. But here's the problem, and I've said this on this podcast numerous times. I think Texas A&M is, if they are not the best team in the country, they are legitimately one of the top 2 best teams in the country. I don't even know who's ranked number 2 right now, but I think it's Texas A&M and
Indiana's ranked 2.
Okay, but I think it's Texas A&M and Ohio State in terms of who the absolute best teams in the country are. So I'm going to take Texas A&M to win this game, but I think this is going to be a really close game. It's a 2.5-point spread, which seems about right with it being at LSU. And LSU, despite not playing great for a lot of the season, still a very talented roster. So this is one of those games I feel like it's going to be like 17-14 or 13-6 or something like that. Because while A&M can play, we've seen A&M, and you talked about this last week, A&M can kind of play any style of game they need to play. LSU, with a much improved defense and a getting better but still, somewhat struggling offense, I think is going to want to play clock management and win the time of possession battle, which would obviously result in a lower scoring game. Just longer possessions equals fewer possessions. So I'm going to take A&M in a close one, in a low-scoring game, take an under 49.5 on this.
Um, most seasons I would probably pick LSU to win this one. Um, the way the offensive line has struggled so mightily this year just gives me so much pause to seriously consider picking LSU over A&M in this one. They much them and Texas have been mirror images of each other this year in so many ways because they lost so much off of their offensive lines to the draft. I mean, I think they each had 4 players drafted. My sister texted me. She lives in the Baton Rouge area. She texted me and said, what do you think is going on with LSU? Why are they struggling? I told her it's line play is the main problem. And she said, well, they need to get a new offensive line coach. I said, no, it's the same coach they've had for the last 3 years, and the line's been awesome. It's not always the coach, right? I mean, you have 4, 5 new starters on the line. It takes time for them to gel. It takes time for them to learn to play together. And of course, when you have the injuries and stuff, and I think they've had some injuries to the line this year as well, so that hurts your cohesion and stuff. If this game is played with last year's offensive line, I'm probably picking LSU in this one, but because of the way the defense for A&M's been playing, that one thing that makes me kind of hesitant to just out and out pick A&M is I was listening to Matt Flynn and Jacob Hester talking, and Matt Flynn said he wanted to look up what Marcel Reed, the quarterback for A&M, what his completion percentage was against the best team they played this year. Well, the best team he found was Notre Dame. And his completion percentage, he had a lot of yards. He had 360 yards, but it was a lot of big plays. But his completion percentage was like 47%, so it was less than 50. And that's one area of strength for LSU. Like their defense is the strength, but their secondary is really good. So I think the LSU secondary can keep them in this game. They definitely have a chance to win this one, but I'm picking Texas A&M to win this one because I just have more faith in Mike Elko than I do Brian Kelly. And listening to Josh Pate this week, it really sounds like if LSU loses this game, the fire under Brian Kelly's seat, it's about to go from a warm breeze to a blazing inferno. So things could get interesting off the field in Baton Rouge after this game as well.
Remind me again what his buyout is.
Like 53.3.
So high, but not any. It's right there in line with Franklin's, and we've already seen that when he was in the semifinals last year. So, okay, so this next one is interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
I am not going to speculate on whether or not. Well, let me first set it up. So this is a noon kick. Number 8, Ole Miss is going to the Palace on the Prairie or the Palace on the Plains, whatever they call it. Oklahoma, number 13, Oklahoma. They are both 6-1. Ole Miss is 3-1 in conference. Oklahoma's 2 in conference. Oklahoma is a 5.5-point favorite. 51.5 over and under. Okay, so there's a couple things about this game that intrigue me. First of all, how is Mateer progressing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is Oklahoma gonna be fully back to the form they were in prior to the Texas loss? Now, let's not kid ourselves. It's not like they weren't like taking teams behind the woodshed. They were just winning hard-fought games. Now,
yeah,
we also have to keep in mind Auburn has not looked very good this year, and Auburn, Auburn took them to the last possession of the game. Now it was a long shot. It's not like they got down to the 2-yard line. They were on their own side of the field. But my point is that while Oklahoma has looked really good in the win column, and Mateer has looked really good, it's not like they're blowing teams off the field. But and obviously the other aspect is Ole Miss is coming off of their first loss of the year. So the reason this is interesting to me is because of something none of us know. A lot of people have an opinion, but, and this is rhetorical, we're not going to answer because we don't know. But is Lane Kiffin truly interested in that job in Gainesville? Because if he is, historically, this is a game Lane checks out for. Doesn't mean they're going to lose necessarily if he checks out. Now, if he's not interested, I think he's locked in. I think Ole Miss wins this game because I think they're a better team. Now, I'm only posing that because there is a lot of, if you go on, I spend a lot, like I try to always listen to SEC at large or college football at large pundits. I try to never listen to like one team specifically. Because it's kind of like watching MSNBC or Fox News. You're gonna get a version of it, but it's gonna be colored one way or the other when you listen to either fans or beat writers for said teams. But it was funny because I did a little experiment this week where I looked on some of the message boards and some of the Ole Miss podcasters, and then did the same thing with Florida, and you got two totally different things. You got, well, it's locked up. Lane has no interest in going from all the Ole Miss people. All the Florida people are saying they're hearing this or that or the other. And when you look down the middle, what it seems like is no one actually knows. Mm-hmm. What we do know is that Florida's NIL is fourth either in the country or in the SEC. Ole Miss's, I saw this earlier today. Hold on one second. So it's in the country. Florida's NIL collective right now is fourth in the country. Ole Miss's is 35th. Okay. Current recruiting class for the next class, that's going to change because Florida fired a coach, but they are number 4 in recruiting. Ole Miss is number 9. Now that stat is a little bit irrelevant because you're talking about the coach who has the 9th best class potentially coming to the so not quite as good a recruiter, right? I mean, Lane's a portal guy, so I'm not disparaging him on that. My point in saying all of this, I think it's relevant to this game because I think how Ole Miss performs, how Lane calls the game and everything else. I mean, remember, this is the guy who left for FIU when Alabama was in the playoff and Sark took over to call the plays. Because once he took that job, he was checked out and Saban said, go ahead and go. In the playoff. So this is a more mature Lane Kiffin. I have no idea whether he's interested or not. I don't think any of the people talking about it know. I think only Lane knows. And people close to Lane. But that's why this game is interesting to me. Because if that's a job he wants because of his Tampa connections, because of the, more money, bigger markets, better recruiting bed than, at large. I mean, there's 22 million people in the state of Florida. I don't know how many there are in Mississippi, but it's, not 22 million because Florida is the 3rd largest state in the country. So, I'm not trying to make a case either way, but with the Mateer thing, the Oklahoma winning, all but the Texas game, but not blowing teams out of the water. All of those things plus the Lane situation just makes me curious. I don't know what to think about this game at all.
And see, I would think if he has interest in going to Florida, that he would be more locked in on trying to win this game because it's another job interview type. It's showing what you can do when all the distractions in the world are swirling around you, right?
But
So
don't you think though, because I would agree with you if we were talking about a coach who has a track record like, let's say, Golish at a USF, or Dillingham at Arizona State. Um, Lane Kiffin has done things in the 5 years he's been at Ole Miss that Ole Miss has never had. I think I heard yesterday on the radio that they've never had a 10-win season until Lane Kiffin got there. They may have. I don't know. Now, part of that is used to play 9 games, so it's not like you've been playing 10 or more forever. And when Ole Miss was good, in the 50s and 60s, they weren't playing 10, 12, 15 games. So part of that is, that's a little bit of a take that with a grain of salt. But don't you think the hay's kind of already in the barn with a guy like Lane Kiffin, in terms of what he's done at a school like Ole Miss? And when I say a school like Ole Miss, I know Ole Miss fans are very proud, and they have some great alumni who have gone there. But Ole Miss is one of 3 teams, 4 teams who have never been to an SEC championship. And if I'm remembering correctly, the other 3 are Texas A&M, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt. So Texas A&M obviously has not been in the league but 13 years, and they very likely will go to the SEC championship this year. Ole Miss has never been, and it started in '92. Florida has been the second most in the country, period. And Ole Miss is a much better program. Their state of their program is a much better. Second most in the SEC behind Alabama, and it took Nick Saban until 2021 to surpass Florida's appearances in SEC championship games. And if you're doing the math, that means he was there, for 14 seasons, in order to do that. Right. My point is, if Lane Kiffin can do the things he's done at Ole Miss, what can he do at an LSU or an Auburn or a Florida or an Alabama? I kind of think I don't think what happens the rest of the season matters for Lane. I think if there's a big job that opens up, whether it's Florida or some other job that's top tier that he's interested in, I think he would probably have right of first refusal to that, unless it's like USC or Tennessee, because been there, done that. So
yeah,
but that's. I do agree with you. If you're talking about an up-and-comer, Lane Kiffin's been in the college game long enough. I think people kind of know what you're going to get from Lane. So,
yeah. He was going to take the Auburn job a couple years before Hugh Freeze took it, and his daughter talked to him and basically kind of guilted him into staying at Ole Miss, but he's matured even more since then. He's got his family back there in Oxford. His son's playing quarterback at Oxford High School. I really don't see him leaving for Florida. And I have no interest either way. I mean, who I pull for. Neither one of those teams. I don't see him leaving for Florida. I think he's happy where he is. I know he's got the Florida roots and all, with all the ties and stuff that he has with Florida. But he really has built something here. And I looked at it while you were talking. Hugh Freeze had a 10-3 record in 2015.
Okay.
with Ole Miss. So,
And that may
um,
not have been exactly what it was, but it was something that he's either done that had only been done rarely or never been done. Something, and I thought 10 was in there somewhere. But let me give you an example. All right, so let's say I was a college football coach. All right, I love where I live. I love my friends, and I live in South Carolina near Columbia. So let's just say I was building a program at the University of South Carolina. I grew up in Florida, in the state of Florida. I love South Carolina. If I got a chance to go to, let's say, it's not a good example because they're not. Well, I'll say this: University of South Alabama, because that's about an hour and a half from where I grew up in Florida. They're in Mobile, so they're a coastal city, everything like that. Um, just that alone would make me consider doing it, even though that would be a step down in a job. Now, reverse that and talk about being a step up in recruiting, in resources Florida has right now because they're brand new, top 5 facilities in the country. Um, you said he was gonna take the Auburn job. What I've heard was that he had interest in the Auburn job and Auburn had interest in him. I don't know that he was like, yeah, I'm doing it, and then his daughter was like, no, Dad, please don't do it, and he just didn't. I think his daughter definitely played a role in it, but I don't know that he ever got to the point where he's like, yeah, let's sign on a dotted line or anything. So I think the roots think because Gainesville to Tampa is like we talked about this last night when we were talking about the Jags. Gainesville to Tampa is like an hour and a half. Okay, he knows the area well. He probably knows all the high schools very well. And when you compare that, no disrespect to the state of Mississippi. Both of my parents, my mom was born and raised there. My dad lived there from 6 years old until they were married and adults and had 2 children. I have nothing but respect for the state of Mississippi. But if you are a guy who is raised in big cities because his dad was an NFL coach and largely in Central Florida where he would be in Gainesville with 3 or 4 really big cities around you and a lot of great like the IMG Academy, Lakeland, Dwyer, all of these schools that you hear about time and time and time again, St. Thomas Aquinas. And you're thinking, okay, I'm in Oxford, Mississippi. The closest metropolitan area is Memphis, and we all know. I mean, there are some cool things about, like, Beale Street's cool. The barbecue in Memphis is unparalleled, but Memphis is a city in trouble right now. I mean, that they have a lot of crime issues, a lot of they're kind of like, it's kind of like Diet Detroit. But my point is,
at this point, I think Detroit may be Diet Memphis.
well, that may be that may be true. I mean, in fact, in a lot of ways, I feel like Memphis is comparable more to Flint, Michigan, than it is to Detroit, because Flint, at one time was, Chad and I have our shared grandfather had they had their first 3 or maybe 4. Was your mom born there too?
She was in Grand Rapids.
Okay. So they must have still been in Flint then, because my dad was 6 when they moved. But Flint at that time had the automotive industry, and was a nice little town. And Flint has basically become like post-apocalyptic. But anyway, I wanna keep reiterating. Lane Kiffin may have zero interest in the job, and I don't even think he's the best candidate for the job. I think that there are probably 3 people that I think would be better for that job for the University of Florida. But it seems like the University of Florida has him at the very top of their list, and I'm just saying, I think that there's a very good chance that Florida is one of the few jobs uniquely to Lane Kiffin. I'm not saying it's one of the few jobs any coach would leave for.
Hmm.
Lane Kiffin has a lot of personal connections to that area. But anyway, I didn't mean to derail it to talk about that. I know a lot of people want to talk about, he's happy there. He wants to, they'll build statues, all that. But these coaches are competitors. They don't want statues for 8-win seasons. They want championships. And if he can win a championship at Ole Miss, and if he does that this year or whatever, maybe he never leaves. I don't know if you can win a championship at Ole Miss until NIL starts to get a little bit more even. Ole Miss is a good school, and they have a lot of good alumni, but it's probably I don't know, I don't have the stats, but it's probably 40% the size of the alumni base of the University of Florida, which is also a good academic school, and much smaller alumni base equals fewer boosters, less NIL. You know what I mean? That's just how it works. So anyway, I'm going to take Ole Miss to win this game because they are a better team. I don't know about Mateer's health, but I'm nervous because Oklahoma's at home, and we just don't know the status of Kiffin. But I'll take Oklahoma to win. Sorry, Ole Miss to win the game.
Okay. Yeah, I'm taking Ole Miss as well. I mean, they went to Georgia last week. It almost came out with the win in that one. I still am questioning how healthy Mateer is. And
that's
Trinidad Chambliss, yeah, Trinidad Chambliss played pretty well last week. Not quite well enough to win, but that was his first road start in the SEC. I talked about how last year he was playing at a little, I think it was like a Division III school up in Michigan. So, I forget the name of it, but like the largest crowd he had was like 5,000. They had 70,000 for the entire year, as far as like that he played in front of, and he played in front of like 95,000 last, or whatever it is at Sanford Stadium. But he wasn't overly rattled in that game. I don't think he'll be rattled at Oklahoma. I think Ole Miss wins this one. I think all the noise is put to the side, and they may even use that for motivation. So with that one, I think it's going to be a close one. But I do think Ole Miss comes out with the win in this one. But this is still a very good Oklahoma team. Like it's not like they're not capable of winning this one. To me, it's more Mateer's health is what's keeping me from just picking them in this one.
Yeah, well, speaking of guys that have been mentioned with the Florida job, funny enough, I don't think this guy's interested in the Florida job, and I don't think that Florida is interested in him necessarily, but he is a good coach, and that is, of course, Eli Drinkwitz. You can't go anywhere where they're talking about potential coaching candidates for jobs without them mentioning him with Florida and a handful of others. But I will flip the script and say to you what you just said about Lane Kiffin. I don't know that Drink wants to leave. Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Now he might, but who knows where he wants to go if he does. But that is, of course, number 15 Missouri going to Nashville to play number 10 Vandy. Dude,
say that again.
Number 15 Missouri going to 10
Yep.
Vandy. It's funny.
Doesn't that just sound good?
Well, it does, but here's what's crazy. I'm so conditioned to it now because they've been good for a year and a half. I didn't even blink when I said it. It was just number 10 Vandy. That's the weirdest part, is that it wasn't weird anymore.
Yeah.
So, because all season it's been weird. So that's a good catch on that. So look,
College game day is there. You made it when College game day shows up in your town, right? I mean,
well,
this is the first trip to Nashville.
You made it, or it's that one obscure weekend right before rivalry week where there's no good games, and so they go to like an FCS game.
Mm-hmm.
and they go to like wherever it is in Idaho where they haven't lost a game in like since the 1700s or whatever it is. So yeah, but other than that, yes, you know you've made it win, and here's the crazy thing, man. It's a top 15 matchup, legitimate top 15 matchup, to the point, right, that in this game, Vanderbilt's a 2.5 point favorite, which means it's a 0. We've had a lot of 2.5 and 5.5s.
Yeah.
2.5 point favorite, 53.5 over under, both 6-1, both 2-1 in the SEC. I literally think these teams are almost even in every regard. I think Missouri has more. Well, I know Missouri has more talent because of the academic standards at Vanderbilt, and Missouri has more clout than Vanderbilt as an athletic and football program. But I haven't figured out who's the better coach, and I have not really watched Pribula a whole lot this year. And you know, you were talking about Pavia last episode. And something occurred to me, and people are going to think this is the weirdest and the worst comparison ever, but hear me out. You know who Pavia reminds me of?
Give me an error.
Not this year.
But recent.
This century.
This century. Okay. Eric Crouch?
No.
Okay.
You're going to think I'm nuts for this, but listen to my explanation here. I think Pavia reminds me of Tim Tebow. Not size, not speed, not character, not athletic giftedness, but he's a gamer. And him being on the field with the ball usually results in positive plays for his team. You even saw that with Tebow in Denver when everybody knew he wasn't going to be a long-term NFL quarterback. Mm-hmm. But in college, you know, obviously Tebow was, I don't know, 6'4", 235. Diego Pavia is probably like, he seemed, when you look at him on TV, he looks like he's 5'7", 180. I don't know what he is, but you know, different type of guy. Tebow was more athletically gifted. Characters a lot different between the two of them. But I think they both lift up their team. Right? And so that, for me, is going to be the difference in this. So I'm going to take Vanderbilt to win the game. I think you got evenly matched coaches, evenly matched competitors. Diego Pavia is the X factor, and Nashville being a home game, so I'm taking the Commodores.
Yeah, you know, to me, like you said, he's the X factor in this game because I'll just pull up the preview on the ESPN app, and Pribula, he's got 11 touchdowns, he's got 7 interceptions, so he's not very careful with the ball. It's the run game is where the Missouri Tigers have the edge. They have probably the best running back in the country, Maud Hardy, who is from Mississippi. He's actually from the area where I work. I've mentioned that once or twice on this podcast. But I mean, he was last year. He was at ULM. He was at Monroe last year. He's not a big guy at all. He's like 5'7", 5'8". But he is just a fantastic running back. But Diego Pavia, he's got 15 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. But he's also the leading rusher on the team, which is concerning. You know, this is 77 carries for 438 yards, 4 touchdowns. You don't want your quarterback to be being the leading rusher. You know, this is not Navy or you know, they're not running triple option. So that is a little concerning because, you know, kind of like with Jaden Daniels when he was at LSU and now in the NFL, you're going to take some shots. Now he's thick He's a thick kid. He's not the thin rail that Jaden Daniels was or is, but those shots add up, and the Missouri defense is a very solid defense. Their one loss was to Alabama, and it wasn't a bad loss at all. If I remember right, I think it was a very close game. I'm pulling up the standings real quick. They lost by 3 points. So, I this is a game that ESPN analytics has it. Yeah, has it 55.1 to 44.9. Vandy favored, which is pretty close, right? And it's a 2.5 point. Did you say it was for who was the spread for? It was
Missouri,
for
I think, is a 2.5 point favorite. I just went away from it for a second. The South Alabama Georgia State game has gone final, and South Alabama did win, by the way.
Yeah.
So
It looks like, if I'm reading this right, it looks like maybe Vandy's 2.5 point favorite
okay,
by what I'm seeing.
That may be. I went away from it and then I couldn't remember. So
Yeah. All that being said, Clark Lee, he's a Vandy alumnus. He played football for Vandy. Played fullback for him, I think is what they said. This dude lives and breathes Vandy football. Eli Drinkowitz is not a Missouri alumnus, but you could tell he loves playing there. He loves coaching there. He's enjoying raising his family there. I think Penn State is going to come calling this off season. It'll be interesting to see if he stays. He's a big game coach. They beat Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl a couple years ago. It wasn't a really great game, but Missouri did what they had to do to win.
Well, let's see how he motivates, right? Because I think one of the things with Vandy has been Clark Lee has elevated them beyond what Vandy has been maybe ever.
Mm-hmm.
Still not, they're still not, we're not talking about it as one of the top 5, 6 best teams in the country, but they're a legit top 15 team. And I think one of the challenges is, let's take Arkansas, for example. Let's say next year Arkansas, or the year after, with whoever their new coach is a top 10 team. Or South Carolina when Spurrier was there. Well, both of those teams, have had many eras where they were doormats. But once they got to a certain level, people respected them.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't really happen with teams like that. I've never really seen that happen with Kentucky. Even as good as Stoops has been there in the past, you would see them win games because teams would not take them seriously. The coaches might, the teams wouldn't. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges with coaches right now preparing for Vandy, is that not only are the coaches having to work overtime to get the players motivated to take it seriously, like Vandy is a legit team, but then when you add on top of that, they are legitimately like a real team.
Yeah.
I think that makes it harder, And so we'll see how good of a motivator Drink is. Drink has been known to win, like you said, win or play very close in big games, but he's also been known to lose or come very close to losing games he really shouldn't lose.
Yeah.
And this is a really big game, but in the eyes of probably Missouri fans and maybe even some of the players, a game you just shouldn't lose. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know the answer to it. I'm just saying it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
I think the players know that, this is not your pawpaw's Vandy. This isn't even your daddy's Vandy. This is a new era of Vandy football. How long it lasts, we'll see. I'm taking Vandy.
The only team I don't mean to keep cutting you off. They might know that this isn't Pawpaw's Vandy, but so far the only team to beat Vandy this year is Alabama at Alabama, and Vandy beat them last year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like that's the thing for me is it seems to me like the only team that has taken Vandy adequately serious is Alabama, and that's likely because they got embarrassed last year by losing to them. So,
Yeah.
The players may know.
I don't know that was. I don't know if that was the issue with LSU last week when they lost to them. I think they just got outplayed on the line of scrimmage. And I think that's where this game is going to be won and lost is the line of scrimmage. I'm taking Vandy to win. I think it's going to be a close one. I think this could be the game of the day. I won't get to see it because it's on at the same time as the Southern Miss game, so I'll just have to keep up with it, in stadium. But this is going to be one that this could put Vandy right there in the running to maybe make it to Atlanta. I wanted to say Nashville. I don't think they're already in Nashville. That's not right. There's a bottleneck at the top of the conference. It's
Yeah, but I do want to say because we both have been guilty of talking about this a lot. So I'm looking at this right now. Every SEC team has played at least 3 conference games. Only South Carolina has played more than 4. So this year is the final year of the 8 conference game schedule, meaning about half of the teams have played half of their SEC schedule.
Mm-hmm.
A few have played less than half, and only South Carolina, who is 1-4, so they're out anyway. Only South Carolina is over half of their SEC schedule played. I bring that up to say this. When you look at the SEC standings currently, mathematically, because I do agree with you, I think that puts Vandy in a better position. Now, they still have a tough schedule remaining, even if they were to win this game. But mathematically, you are looking at from position 11, which is Florida right now, all the way up to position 1, which is Texas A&M. A 2-game difference in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
So with 4 or more games, because South Carolina is below that line, so with 4 or more games for every one of those 11 teams left, there is a bottleneck right now. But there's a bottleneck because with only 4 games, you can only be 0-4, 1-3, 2-2,
Mm-hmm.
3-1, or 4-0.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that 11 of the teams are 2-2 or better. Then you have South Carolina's 1-4, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Auburn, and Kentucky are all over. Crazy times. Auburn, and Florida and Tennessee and LSU are all in the bottom half of the SEC standings, while Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M and Missouri are all occupying the top half. And Oklahoma and Texas are in there, which is still weird,
Yeah.
So weird to see the way this is playing out so far. But yeah, so it's going to be exciting. Unfortunately, you and I only picked 2 games different this week, so I will not be able to catch you, but hopefully I win both of those so that I can keep inching closer to you. Like I said earlier, I think I'm 4 or 5 games behind you. We'll look at it in our review episode. I've got it loaded in there. So, all right. Thank you guys for joining us. We got bogged down a little bit in the SEC, but like I said, at the top of the show, wasn't a lot to talk about. in the conferences we cover this week in particular, except in the SEC. So, Quacker, tell people where they can find the show.
You can find us social media wise on X, Aluminum House Pod. You can find us on Facebook at Aluminum House Podcast. We're on Instagram, Aluminum House Podcast, and of course, streaming. We're on here on YouTube and on Twitch at Aluminum House Podcast. On Twitch, it's all one word: Aluminum House Podcast. Just say it real fast. Just
Aluminum House Podcast, like that.
That's right. That's right.
Well, awesome. Well, as always, thank you guys for joining us. Don't forget to watch college football. There's college football. There was, Tuesday, Wednesday. There was tonight. There will be tomorrow night as well. Enjoy your college football weekend, and we will see you on Monday.
We'll be right back.